Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Today, we're launching a really critical deep dive into what I'd call the modern battlefield of management. We're talking about those complex, high-stakes conversations that can really make or break a manager's success. Our mission today is to unpack this growing reliance on AI and simulation technology and how organizations are finally moving past that passive learning model. You know, those dusty old training videos.
Yeah, and it's so important because this shift, it isn't just a trend, it's really a foundational necessity now.
Right.
We see it over and over that these soft skills are no longer just, a nice to have. They are absolute core to business longevity.
They really are.
The way a manager handles performance feedback or mediates a team conflict that directly impacts retention, morale, and, the bottom line results. And the traditional methods just haven't worked for these complex behaviors like empathy.
So we've drawn on this excellent article that really drills down into this shift, and it details how companies are putting these AI and simulation models into practice. The focus here is all on practical, measurable value for professionals who are managing people today.
And you can see the investment. I mean, when you have global players like IBM, Microsoft, McDonald's, even PepsiCo, all investing heavily in these kinds of platforms, it's moved way past the experimental stage.
It's mainstream.
It's about getting that consistency and quality across a huge, often geographically dispersed management team.
So for you listening, whether you're a manager trying to get better at coaching or maybe an L&D professional building a new curriculum, the core question we're digging into is this. How do we get from abstract management theory to actual, repeatable, measurable behavior change using this new wave of tech?
A crucial question.
Let's unpack it. Let's start with the fundamental problem that simulation really solves. We've all been there, right? You read the handbook on conflict resolution, you watch the video, but when you're actually sitting across from a really frustrated employee, all that theory just sort of melts away. You just default to your old habits.
And that's the classic failure of passive learning. Reading something doesn't activate the neurological pathways you need to manage a complex emotional response.
Exactly.
So the key argument for simulation, for this kind of role play, is that it forces managers to practice those tough conversations before they actually happen. It creates a low-stakes environment.
So you can fail safely.
You can fail safely, whether it's a difficult performance review or navigating some team tension.
I always think of it like a flight simulator, but for leadership.
Yeah.
You get to crash and burn without, taking down the actual plane.
That is the perfect analogy. And the benefit of this active practice is just immense. When you practice in a realistic setting, you have to improvise, you have to adapt your language.
Pay attention to tone and timing.
Exactly. All those subtleties. And that process turns abstract advice into muscle memory. It just makes the skill transfer into a real one-on-one so much easier.
What's also fascinating, and the sources really highlight this, is the jump in engagement. These immersive 3D platforms, they report way higher participation rates, much stronger retention, and you see this real boost in manager confidence.
Yeah, compared to what the sources call flat static content.
Right. When the pressure feels real, the learning actually sticks.
And that engagement is paired with a level of feedback that a human role-play partner just can't consistently deliver. It's instant, it's objective, it's incredibly granular.
So it's not just what you said, but how you said it.
Precisely. The system can score your clarity, your pace, your use of empathetic language, even your decision timing. And all that detailed feedback, the recordings, the analytics, it all feeds directly into the company's learning management system, their LMS.
Okay, before we move on, I want to press on that point about the LMS. For our listeners who might not be in L&D, why is that so critical? Why does it matter that the data feeds directly into that system?
It's all about scale and strategy. For a big organization, trying to manually track how effective a manager's conversations are it's impossible.
Right.
The LMS integration means every single practice session from anywhere in the world is quantified and standardized. This ensures consistency, but it also gives the organization this massive strategic advantage.
Yes.
The ability to spot and fix behavioral skill gaps in real time, in a personalized way, without some huge manual audit effort.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving from the theory of practice, let's pivot to the toolkit itself. What's the actual methodology here? What does a manager do when they step into one of these virtual training rooms?
It all starts with rigor, with defining the outcome. The first step for any L&D team is to decide on the exact scenario. Let's say it's performance coaching. And then you list the measurable success criteria. You have to define what good actually looks like.
So it's not just have the conversation. It's about hitting specific goals, right? Like maintain an active listening score of 80% or clearly state the 3 next steps.
Absolutely. That level of specificity is what makes it functional. Once that's defined, then you choose the modality and you try to match the format to the sensitivity of the scenario. We see 3 main choices.
Okay.
You have your 2D chat-based simulations. Those are fantastic for just sheer scale and quick, high-frequency practice.
Low barrier to entry, low bandwidth needed.
Exactly. Then you've got virtual reality or 3D environments. Those give you this intense feeling of presence, high immersion, and that's essential for those really high-stakes conversations where visual cues matter.
And the third one.
That would be the blended, coach-led approach. This combines the tech. So a manager can practice the same conversation 10 times with the nuanced human feedback and mentorship you need for those really complex interpersonal skills.
Let's dig into the features a bit more because that's where the magic is. We hear about micro-learning tools like Coursera delivering short modules, but where does that deep analytic measurement come in?
That's where you see platforms like virtual speech. They simulate the high-stakes communication, and they measure elements that, passive content just can't touch. We're talking vocal tone, pace.
And in the 3D environments, even things like simulated eye contact.
Yes, and body posture.
Wait, hold on. How does that actually work? How do you measure body language for the average person working from home on a laptop?
That's a great question. So in a full VR setup, the headset itself tracks all these tiny movements and proximity, so you get data on things like fidgeting or leaning in.
Okay, that makes sense for VR.
But even in a lot of the 2D webcam simulations, AI is analyzing facial microexpressions and vocal patterns. The speed, the pitch, the energy in your voice, these are all huge indicators of your emotional state and how empathetic you're perceived to be. It's so much more than just a content review.
Yeah, really raises the stakes. And I see Vertway mentioned here, which focuses on multi-user 3D environments. I imagine that's for things like group conflict.
Exactly. For training on group mediation or cross-functional team discussions, you need multiple learners interacting at the same time.
And the audit trail there must be critical.
Oh, it's a major component. Those sessions are recorded. The transcripts go to the LMS for review. It's not just for performance tracking anymore. It's increasingly for compliance, especially around sensitive issues. And then you see tools like 360 Learning for scaling content creation or de-escalating, which can take your old static corporate PowerPoints and convert them into these tailored interactive scenarios. That ability to customize is vital.
And that realism, I guess that's where the scenario design really comes in. It's not a generic script. It's about using defined personas, a disgruntled high performer, for example.
Or an underperforming new hire.
And building in real policy constraints and branching outcomes that force the manager to make difficult choices that mirror the real world.
Precisely. If the scenario doesn't feel authentic, the behavior change just won't stick. Which brings us squarely to the ultimate question for any executive, right? How do we prove this investment is actually working? You have to link these development activities to business outcomes.
Yeah, saying managers feel more confident isn't going to be enough to justify that budget line. What are the concrete KPIs that organizations should be tracking for ROI?
You have to look way beyond simple things like engagement rates. We're talking detailed pre- and post-assessment scores on specific competencies, and crucially, behavior change metrics tied directly to business goals.
So role-based metrics that actually move the needle.
Exactly. Are these coaching conversations leading to faster employee growth? Are management interventions actually leading to sustained improvements in team productivity? Those are the questions.
The power, as you said before, is in the real-time analytics. So instead of waiting for the annual survey, a manager gets a dashboard that flags a skill gap right away.
Yes. If a whole team is struggling with, say, difficult termination messaging, the manager can push a targeted 20-minute simulation module to that group that week. It's incredibly efficient.
And the data is comprehensive. Transcripts, metrics, all flowing into the LMS for review and compliance.
And we're seeing this deployed globally. I mean, think about the scale of it. IBM's Your Learning, Microsoft's MySkills, the global portals at McDonald's and PepsiCo. These are huge implementations that provide undeniable proof points. They are using this quantitative data to build a clear, defensible ROI story.
So if we translate that into business terms, the goal is measurable behavior change that leads directly to things like, reduced employee turnover,
Reduce turnover costs, fewer escalations that need expensive HR intervention,
And just faster conflict resolution on the team floor.
which all translates directly into time and money saved and productivity gained.
So what does all of this mean for you, the professional, who's looking to implement or just leverage these tools right now? Where do you even begin?
Well, the implementation playbook is pretty straightforward. Successful rollouts always start small and they stay focused.
Don't try to solve everything at once.
Exactly. The advice from people who've done this successfully is to pick one clear conversation to start with. For instance, delivering negative performance feedback. Master that through simulation first.
That narrow pilot approach.
Yeah.
It seems essential for getting that early win and the internal buy-in. But why the focus on short, frequent practice? Why is a 20-minute session a few times a month better than a full-day workshop?
It really just comes down to retention science and cognitive load. Short, frequent practice loops, they reinforce the learning and build momentum without totally overwhelming a busy manager.
So you're activating the skill right before you might need it again.
Yes, and that's what creates deep, sustainable behavioral change, not the temporary knowledge bump you get from an annual seminar that you forget a week later.
Yeah. So ultimately, the future of developing these skills seems to be an integration of three things: micro-learning for the quick knowledge hits, immersive simulations for the deep practice, and then human mentoring for the really nuanced feedback.
And as we move toward relying on these systems more and more, we have to recognize that integrating AI into this training is fundamentally reshaping how we develop our people.
Right.
If these systems can track and score things like empathy and tone, what does that mean for transparency and fairness?
That raises a really important question for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive with us. How would you embed systems for ensuring transparent data use and objective criteria into your own learning programs right now? How do you make sure that while the technology drives efficiency, it also maintains trust and fairness within your organization? That's something to mull over as you transition back to your day.